This year's FA Cup final has gone to a penalty shootout. It has been won 6-5 on penalties by Liverpool. No goals in 90 minutes, no goals in extra time. But with the way the game was played and the energy that both sides put in, it was actually a very entertaining 0-0 draw. It's just the longer it went on, the more you feared the dreaded penalty shootout, which ironically was a very entertaining penalty shootout. But there were 3 misses in there as well. And a miss from a player you don't expect, a miss from a player that could prove crucial for England come the World Cup, because we've proven that we like going to extra time in penalties in World Cups and Euros in recent times, and a miss that might prove crucial as one of the most important misses of his Chelsea career, maybe one of the last times he puts on a Chelsea shirt, depending on the takeover negotiations. Let's break down the first 90 minutes, then we'll break down the extra time, and then we'll break down the penalty shootout. The first half of normal time, I think Liverpool just edge it. They started like a freight train, much like they did against Man City, except they just didn't get the goals. That's the difference. That is the only difference between the semi-final against Man City and the final, is no goals were scored. But the way Liverpool went about that opening half, very similar. Tried to blow the opposition away early on. And there were moments where you're thinking Chelsea could be 2, 3, 4-0 down. They should be, but they weren't. And that's down to Edouard Mendy in the Chelsea goal. Had a fantastic game. Alisson Becker, to be fair, when Chelsea had the momentum as the first half went on and the opening stages of the second half, is the reason why it was still 0-0. Both goalkeepers had fantastic games. It's a pity that one of them has to lose. And it's going to be great watching both Alisson Becker and Edouard Mendy at the World Cup at the end of the year. They're 2 fantastic, world-class goalkeepers. But as I say, I think Liverpool edged the first half of normal time. I think Chelsea, they started the second half like Liverpool started the first, on top. And I think they edged the play in the second half on balance. So I think the first 90 minutes of the final is a very balanced 90 minutes. I think that was a league game or an earlier round of the FA Cup when replays were still a thing. A 0-0 would have been a fair result on the day, and you could have no complaints from 2 very evenly matched sides. And let's be honest, very evenly matched sides. Very difficult to tell them apart. Extra time, much the same. You could see the energy levels starting to wane a little bit. But as extra time went on more and more, you started to feel that Luis Diaz was not going to get a goal somehow, even for all his efforts. He was one of the best players on the day. You could see like players like Lukaku, for example, didn't necessarily have the impact you would hope. He's been very, very good in the cup competitions for Chelsea this season, even though his overall form for Chelsea has been a bit below par, below what was expected after his move from Inter. Could that be one of the last appearances Lukaku makes in a Chelsea shirt? He was not at his best today. He's been very good in the cup competitions this season. Obviously, extra time wears on. And we get to the dreaded penalty shootout. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The players that miss in the penalty shootout and the players that score in the penalty shootout. Now, Chelsea take the first penalty. Marcos Alonso, he had a very, very good game. Very solid in defence. Very good in attack as well for Chelsea today. He scores his penalty. James Milner, Mr. Reliable, he scores his penalty. Cesar Azpilicueta, captain fantastic for Chelsea. He's been a legend of the club throughout his career there. Hits the post. Could that be one of the last times we see Cesar Azpilicueta play in a Chelsea shirt? And obviously his contract is up at the end of the season. Until the takeover is completed, Chelsea can't sign any new players or re-sign players to contract extensions. His contract is up at the end of the season. Could this be one of the last times we see Azpilicueta in a Chelsea shirt? Thiago scores his penalty for Liverpool. Reece James, which is good for England. Reece James had a very good game today as well. Does score his penalty for Chelsea. Roberto Firmino came on as the game was wearing on. He came on late in the second half. Scores his penalty. Could this be one of the last times we see Firmino in a Liverpool shirt? There are rumours that he's on the way out, with Diego Jota now being part of the setup. Luis Diaz being part of the setup. Is Roberto Firmino on the way out? Could be one of the last times we see Firmino in a Liverpool jersey. Ross Barkley, his time at Chelsea since leaving Everton, he hasn't been overly settled. He didn't get a lot of time in extra time when he came on. He barely touched the ball, if at all. But he scores his penalty. Now, Ross Barkley, it's one of those careers where he promised much and it's sort of fizzled a little bit. It's fizzled out. Maybe he gets moved on in the summer by Chelsea. We'll wait and see. But his time at Chelsea hasn't really been a highlight reel. It's a shame because he's a very, very good player. He's a very talented player, but he has had a lot of injuries. He hasn't really been settled at Chelsea. But it was good to see him get on in the final, and he took his penalty very, very well. Trent Alexander-Arnold, he had another fantastic game, high energy. Still defensively a few weaknesses in his game, although he is massively improved from where he was, I would say, 12, 18 months ago. Scores his penalty. You wouldn't expect anything different from Trent Alexander-Arnold with the dead ball. Jorginho, the last couple of penalties he's taken, including in the Euros final last year, he's missed. He didn't miss today. Very well taken penalty by Jorginho. Sadio Mane, one of the players you would not expect to miss a penalty, considering his escapades in the Africa Cup of Nations and World Cup qualifying for Senegal, but Edouard Mendy is his Senegalese teammate, and that is saved by Edouard Mendy. That's a very, very good penalty save. I'm not going to lie, that is really good goalkeeping by Edouard Mendy. And he got close to saving a couple of others as well. Edouard Mendy is a very underrated goalkeeper, but Sadio Mane missing that penalty, surprising. All things considered, very surprising from Mane there. Adds to the tension. Ziyech's penalty was delayed because a flare was thrown on the pitch by the Chelsea end, by the Chelsea fans. He does score his penalty after a lengthy wait for it to be taken. Which obviously keeps Chelsea in the shootout. Then the pressure is on Diogo Jota. Now, Jota didn't have the impact when he came on today that he has in previous games. Obviously, the concern is that Mo Salah has picked up an injury. Jota didn't quite have the impact he has done in previous games where he's come on. But brilliantly taken penalty. While he's got good work rate and good movement today, he was a little bit ineffectual. But you've got to look at the amount of games that some of these players have played this season. That's the 61st game Liverpool played so far this season and the 62nd that Chelsea have played so far this season. So I'm not surprised some of the players looked out on their feet. Mason Mount steps up. Saved by Alisson Becker. That's a very good save by Alisson Becker from the penalty. Mason Mount, he just didn't look confident. He's had a decent season for Chelsea. Obviously, Southgate being the new manager is obviously in the stands. There are a few English players, eligible for selection, like Milner, Alexander-Arnold, Ross Barkley, Reece James, and Mason Mount, who are taking penalties. Safe to say, if he's in the England squad and there's a penalty shootout, will Gareth Southgate make the same mistake he did at the Euros when he put young players in a very high pressure situation? And it wasn't a well taken penalty either. Good height for Alisson Becker to save. Now, Kostas Tsimikas, understudy to Robinson, left back. He's had a mixed start to his Liverpool career. He hasn't. Andy Robinson's still ahead of him in the pecking order, but considering he didn't get a massive amount of game time today, and in a pressure situation like that, he has become a hero to Liverpool fans with that penalty. Liverpool fans will forget that Mane missed. Chelsea fans will remember that Azpilicueta and Mason Mount missed, however. But for Liverpool fans, Tsimikas has now become folklore hero with that winning penalty. But, hey, look, that's 2 out of 4 trophies they've now won. The quadruple is still technically on, although I think it is unlikely they do overturn the league situation. But the fact that, 4 months ago, there's 9-10 points difference between themselves and Manchester City, and they've now, got 2 trophies this season. Man City have got none so far. This Liverpool side, they are starting to become a trophy machine. Much like Man City under Guardiola, Liverpool under Klopp are starting to get a lot of silverware, and they still have the possibility of winning a Champions League and a league title as well. Although I do think that is more unlikely that it happens. The quadruple is still on. Chelsea, trophy this season, who would have thought? But with everything that's happened off the field, to make it to a cup final and to basically finish third with everything that's happening off the field, with their ownership situation and players not being able to be re-signed for next season and uncertainty around the takeover, Chelsea have had a tumultuous season in the last few months. But unfortunately, it's a trophyless season for Chelsea. However, their core squad is still pretty strong. They have got a strong youth setup, and hopefully, within the next couple of weeks, the takeover is completed and they have a new operating license. Because otherwise, this may be the last time we see a lot of players in Chelsea shirts, and we may not even see Chelsea as a club next season. And I'm being honest. So we'll see what happens with Chelsea, but Liverpool, they're still on for a quadruple as things stand. We'll see if they can pull off what would be a fantastic league title if they can, considering the points gap that was there just after Christmas, and Champions League final against Real Madrid as well. Can they pull off another magical European night when they've got a great history in that competition as well, against a former Everton manager in Carlo Ancelotti, so there's added spice to that one. Thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.